Hello there. Welcome back to Behind
Hello.
the Why. Good to see you again. Hey, we want to thank you guys for joining us. And before we get started today, we're going to be talking about critical race theory and Joe Biden's America. We're going to just hit that on the head and talk about how that's looking, what the impact of that is having in this country, and what the potential impact.
Right.
So a lot of things we've been talking about and discussing were theoretical at one point, but they're happening now. And so like any good garden, you plant a seed and eventually you get a crop. And so that's what
And
we're
maybe
talking
not the
about.
crops you want.
Yes, some people need to pray for a crop failure, but
Yes.
we got a garden, so the Bible tells us you sow to the wind and you reap the whirlwind, right? So we want to make sure that we're sowing correctly.
Right.
But before we get into this conversation, go ahead and take a minute, go ahead and hit that bell and like and give us a thumb up. Let us know that you're hearing us, that we know that we're reaching you. You're hearing what we have to say. And if you'd like to support us in what we're doing to help us continue this job, getting better equipment so we can bring you a better presentation, you can join us on our Patreon account too, and we'll Instagram account, and follow us up. Get on board and invite your friends to come in and talk to us. So we like to get as many people involved in this conversation as we possibly can, because the more we're talking, the less ignorant we are,
Right.
and the less we can be fooled or deceived, to use the King James words. We won't be deceived. So we want to go forward in the light of understanding.
Right.
So now we hit this topic, and by the grace of God, we were like way ahead of the curve on this thing. Over 2 years ago now, we did our conversation on critical race theory.
Right.
And we did an introduction to that topic, and we put it out there. And it's been getting a lot of views. People have been going to it and hearing it because they're looking
And
for
a lot of
information.
conversation came from that one episode.
Right, because people are interested. They need to know, because everybody's telling them what critical race theory is, and a lot of people are agreeing with critical race theory, but they don't know what they're agreeing to.
Right.
And some people are disagreeing with critical race theory, and they also don't know what they're disagreeing with. So we want to talk about that again today, and we're going to fall back on the vast pool of your educational background and draw on this mind of the communication expert that you are, and talk a little bit about critical. That gives a lot of that statement, doesn't it?
I was like, ooh, they've got a lot of confidence now. I'm kidding.
So as we go though, come on, let's talk about this. Let's talk about
Right.
this. What exactly is critical race theory?
Right. Before we get into that, can I just say one thing?
Go ahead.
Because it's so interesting. So when I first went into my program, learning about things, right? So reading a lot of articles, and it was like kind of beating around the bush of like critical race theory. So it wasn't until I dug in where I realized, oh wait, this is what we're talking about. And I started reading stuff for myself.
So now you said your program.
Yes.
What program are we talking about? Just so
When I was getting my master's in communication.
your master's in communication.
Yes.
So that's going to ring that bell. Bam. Because you know what you're talking about. That's why I'm saying that. We're not just ringing off the top of our
Right.
head. We've been sourced.
Oh, I had to read it.
That's
like
what I'm
I
saying.
had
We're
to.
sourced on what we're talking about.
Right.
All right. I should pull that out.
But it was interesting because in the beginning, reading a ton of stuff, right, and all focused on oppression, power, racism, people of color being disadvantaged. A lot of things we read focused on that, right? And I'm like, what the heck? And here I am in a classroom, and some of the classrooms, I'm the only person of color,
Right.
and I'm like, why are y'all talking about me like I'm disadvantaged?
Like you're not even there, right?
Like I'm not even there, but yet my white professor is somehow the expert in the black experience, right?
Don't you love it when people who haven't lived your experience telling you how you should have done it better?
So it gave me so much fuel and passion to like want to. Ooh, a fly scared me.
What's his name? It's like Joe Biden's press secretary. He got the fly that won't ever go away.
I know. Well, even in Pence, remember the day he had his flying head the whole time? Oh, memories.
You got a Republican fly and a Democrat fly.
But anyways,
opportunity buzzer. Go ahead.
Anyways, being immersed in that really gave me a passion to want to be like, you're wrong. And I want to try to show how, right?
Okay.
And so I started to read those things myself. Now the cool thing is, I'll say this first. I graduate. I'm finally happy to be away from the crazy for a little bit. But then no, it went mainstream, right?
Yes.
And then now especially, you see people starting to ask questions. What is critical race theory? It's everywhere. Right. It's on local news. It's
in the
being
church.
taught in the church, in schools, elementary schools.
How many conversations have we had? We had pastors calling us from back east. After
Right.
we did that first show. People call us from Mississippi. People call us from Florida. People calling us. We talk to people from New York. Calling us, asking our opinion on what critical race theory was, because their denomination or their church were starting to embrace this, and they were just falling head over heels in love with this critical race theory because they were perceiving it as some new coming of the Beatitudes or something. And we kept trying to tell people, no, you're missing this. You're embracing something that is antithetical to the Christian view. It's not just a different way of looking at life. This is antichrist. It is antithetical to the Christian worldview.
Exactly. It's not. It doesn't fit into that worldview.
At all.
I think the cool thing is more people are getting educated about what critical race theory is, and so you are seeing different parents kind of stepping up and pushing back, which is cool. So I think that's good movement, and through all this craziness that we're seeing.
Okay. So before we get into all the details of what critical race theory is doing and how people are responding to it, because that part is such an emotional charge, especially when we start talking to parents about what people are trying to do to their children, and especially if those parents are not being involved in that decision. That's a buzzword. People get excited about that. We talk about how people use words, and we use words all the time to get people excited, and people are like, ugh, and they're all upset, and they have no idea what they're upset about. They just know when they heard this word. It's like the Trump derangement syndrome, right? It's like as soon as you heard Trump, it's like, ah! All the intelligent conversation went out the window because people could no longer think. And so the same thing is happening now with this critical race theory. People say critical race and you separate. So if you say you're anti-critical race, all of a sudden you're a racist and you hate black kids and you hate Mexican kids and you're a white supremacist and all this other stupidity. But if you ask a person, what do you mean by critical race? They can't explain it to you.
Right.
They can't explain. Well, it's white privilege. How do you see that being lived out? And they can't give you an explanation that makes sense. Emotionally, they can tell you, it makes me feel this way or that. But they can't really give you an explanation of what's happening. And so we want to talk about that. So what exactly is? Give us a functional definition.
Right.
I know you the professor and everything, you're the smart person. I'm just here for good looks. But give us an explanation of what is critical race, just a simple definition. Critical race.
I could read you a definition.
And that
way it would be, well, this one I kind of compiled from multiple critical race theorists.
Okay. Do you have those sources in case people want to double check it, make sure we're not lying?
I mean, I could share a table or the references page.
We'll put
There's
that
quite
up.
a few. I mean,
we'll put that up at the end of the show because I don't want people to think we're just making this up.
I can name probably one that would be common, and if you look at a lot of different people talking about critical race theory, they cite Delgado and Stefankic.
Okay.
So you can look that up.
I just don't want you to think that we're making this up as we go, because I want you to understand that what we're saying is real.
No, and this is from a critical race theorists, how they define it. Okay,
go ahead.
So critical race theory is often referred to as a movement made up of scholars and activists who focus on how race, racism, and power in society and institutions negatively impact people of color and privilege whites and whiteness.
Okay.
Now, that's the first part of it. The other part of critical race theory, the movement aspect, is it's seeking to basically liberate the oppressed.
Okay.
So identifying what they see as being oppressive systems, oppressive institutions, and then as an activist, what kind of practices can we create, no matter what field you're in, to basically push back against this power that they see as disadvantaging people of color.
Okay.
That's the basic.
And the thing, now, this is how I've always, in my limited understanding of critical race, and I think the funny thing is, I think I'm more educated on critical race than most people, and I still realize that I am very minimally so. But my understanding, and this is where you can correct me, is that and we talked about this a little bit off camera, is that I see critical race coming out of the philosophy of deconstructionism. Is that you have critical race, like deconstruction, the idea, the philosophy behind deconstructionism is that you have a system that's in place. And instead of creating a system that is contrary or contrasting to that, they seek to destroy the system in place. And that's what I see that's happening here, is when it comes to critical race theory, they look at a system, they look at a society, and they say, I don't like the society. So instead of coming up with an idea that builds up and will work, they seek to destroy the society that's there.
Right.
And that's what I see happening here, is that we have an attack on the family, that the nuclear family has been under attack for years in this country. Starting, and I can go back as far as the welfare system in this country and how it targeted, people of color and lower income families, where it was it's like the government was trying to move into the house and move the man out of the house and became the husband for these women. And we saw that had a negative impact, especially on the black community in this country, where we went from 20 to 25% of single parent homes in the 60s, 50s and 60s to now we're over 75-80% of single parent homes.
Isn't that wild?
Because the government's come in and become the father in these homes. You don't need a man, you don't need a father. And so we've seen how this has impacted all of this.
Right.
And it's been this great deconstruction. So go on and speak to me a little bit more, because I know, like I said, I have my passionate issues about what I've seen from my perspective, everything from the destruction of the nuclear family to now we see this new form of critical theory coming out in this denying of gender. You can be anything you want.
Right. Well, I think just then you hit it on the head. And so many people, when it comes to critical race theory, right? We talked about this before in another podcast episode. They use this emotionally charged language.
Right.
You say racism. Oh, I'm not a racist.
Right.
Oh my gosh, I don't want to do that, right?
Pull out the race card.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And so people hear that and they're like, okay, yeah, I think critical race theory is good because yes, people of color and people of color have had a bad history, and so and that's what they think. But the base of critical race theory is critical theory.
Yeah.
And so in order to really understand what critical race theory is trying to achieve, you have to know what critical theory is.
Right.
And if you actually do read about it, especially talking to believers, there's no way you could support critical race theory.
It says of itself that it does not and cannot agree with the Christian world.
Right, and it is, what you said, deconstructionist, in the sense, question everything. There is no objective truth. No. All that matters is what's here and now. And basically, who can get to the top?
And it's funny because when you look at critical theory, you have this idea that they are attacking the elites in any society. We're gonna be the Robin Hoods, right? We're gonna take from the rich and give to the poor, and they identify the problem group. But this is the funny thing. We go back to Marx. Any one of these guys, you go back to Marx, and you'll see the same thing. He identifies the problem society, but what he doesn't say, although if you look at his actions, they prove out, what he doesn't say is that he's going to replace the elite society with himself. So now he's going to become the elite.
Yeah.
You see, and then you look at history, that's exactly what happened. He wanted to destroy this class, right?
He's talking about the ruling class.
He's going to destroy the ruling class, but what did he replace it with?
With
himself. And so
he was the new ruling class.
He was the new ruling class.
Right.
So these people talk, and I hear it all the time, especially I listen to the Democrats talking, and they're like, we're going to attack the rich. Whenever they want to sell a lie to you, what do they say? We're going to tax the rich. We're going to go after the rich. We're going to go after big business. Go ahead. You got a thought?
Oh, yeah, because I think it was just last week. So after they passed the infrastructure bill, right? Crazy amount of money going into this thing. Anyways, what was it? I forget what it was, but Schumer was talking, right?
Schumer, yeah.
And what he said...
How are we going to fund it?
No, and then I had to rewind and listen to him, because I was like, this is wild what he's saying. So first he's talking about the way they're going to pay for it to avoid more debt. I'm like, oh my gosh, already $28 trillion in debt.
Trillion.
That's a lot of debt.
With a T.
He says we're finally going to make those big corporations and rich people, pay their fair share. And I'm like, what? And then he starts talking about class. And he says, we want the middle class to know that they are secure, and then we want everyone to be able to get into the middle class. I'm like, wait. That means there will be no middle class.
Right. There'll be what?
Upper
and lower.
I was like, this is the same old tale that Karl Marx is talking about.
People don't listen, though. This is the problem. I'm telling you. The very thing that they say the other people are doing, that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing.
Right.
They are the ones that are doing this. And so we look at this critical theory as it's being reflected, as we talk about now, from the floor of Congress. We're gonna have the super rich pay for it. Have you ever looked at the payroll of the people who are in Congress? They are the super rich. They are the people who own these master businesses and all this stuff we're talking about. These are not poor people. They might go into Congress as an average person, but they don't stay there. They don't stay there. Not more. If they get elected twice, they're no longer an average person because they found out how to play the game.
Right.
Look at AOC. Her net worth has gone through the ceiling since she got arrested. Not arrested. Since she got voted in out of New York. You look at these people become part of the elite society.
Call her Freudian slip.
Yeah, and they send all this stuff out and they talk about how they're going to attack the rich and all this stuff, and all these poor people want to believe it. They want to believe that this guy's going to be my champion. But what you realize is that just like Karl Marx, what they do is they impose their own rule. Here's a good example. Now, people are going to hate me for saying this, but I love you enough to tell you the truth. people, remember what Pelosi and all them were saying? That Trump's ruling like a tyrant.
Mm-hmm.
He's just rules. He's not even going through Congress. He's
Right.
just. Now, who has been ruling like a tyrant in the
Biden.
last 8 months? It's been Biden.
No, in the first month.
That's
Remember
what
how
I'm
many
saying.
executive orders he
We
has?
did a whole show on
Exactly.
executive orders. But, the very thing that they talk about is what they're doing.
Right.
And this is what we have to understand about this critical theory. These people who approach government, whether it's through education, whether it's in medicine, whether it's in business, they have an agenda.
Right. And I think it's so important, so tying this to critical race theory, because people might be like, okay, you said critical race theory, we're talking about critical theory. I was like, they're one and the same. They're so... the tenets and how it all plays out with power, privilege, it's all the same. So critical theory, I think, kind of lumps it all together. It just looks at what flavor of oppression we're talking about today.
Exactly.
Race or gender or sex, whatever.
I love the part where the conversation with one of the professors, you were explaining yourself to the professor about your upbringing, your position, and she wanted to tell you that you were oppressed. And you were like, how am I oppressed?
Right.
I'm in the top 1% of this population right now. How am I oppressed? And her response was, "You're just not woke." So here's this again, shades of Candace Owens in Congress, right? You talking about the oppression of the black person in this country, but you talk to two white women and ignoring me, the only black person in here. It's the same thing. It's like this. They make themselves elites, so whatever they say become rule. And on top of that, you don't even have the position to argue with them,
Right.
because you get canceled. No. Shades of Marxism, right?
Well,
You don't dare speak against the state.
Yeah, because that's the thing with critical race theory. It's this theory that they've created to be foolproof almost. Because then if you, even as a person of color, disagree with it, they would just say, oh, so you're just basically internally oppressing yourself, right? That you've internalized, and you're basically, it's a self-colonization, and it's...
You become the house Negro.
Basically.
You
right?
love Massa. You love Massa, so you're going to protect Massa. And it's like...
So it's a really...
No!
It's a very self-destructive...
I can disagree with you. It's okay if I disagree with you. But you can't, because in this society, under this critical theory, you cannot disagree.
Right.
We read the article earlier. You're welcome to be an individual, long as you do what they tell you to do.
Right.
And so you can be an individual, long as you do what they tell you.
As long as you fit into that mold.
Yeah.
It's so funny when we were talking about the people who accuse you of things that they're doing themselves, right? And I think a great example recently, I'm sure many people have heard about it, of critical race theory in action is that school in Atlanta, the elementary school, where the mother, what was her name? Kyla Posey.
Right.
And she's black.
Black woman.
And she found out that her second grade class that her daughter was in, or her child, that the principal was segregating the children
based on
their color
of skin.
So like the black students had different classes than the white students.
Does anybody see a problem with this?
I was like, that's problematic.
We're going back to segregation.
Theory, yeah.
It's a violation of civil rights, 1964 Civil Rights Act, Section 6. You can't do that. But here we have a government institution, school, segregating based on skin color.
Yeah.
And the critical theorists are all
in
saying...
the 2021.
The critical theorists are saying, yes, separate those blacks from the whites because those whites are contaminating them. I don't care which lie you tell. You see where we find ourselves? We find ourselves right back under Jim Crow. And people are applauding it and calling it good.
Right.
This is the kind of stupidity that goes into it. You have to go back to your bait. And now I'm going to talk specifically to the Christian mindset. We find in the Gospels, the Gospel of Matthew, where Jesus is talking about love, carrying out the great law. And he gives us the first law. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And he said the second is like unto it. Love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Right.
But he goes on beyond that, and we get what we've come to call the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So as a Christian, let's just take for granted that white people have been oppressing you as a black person. Let's just say you are totally oppressed in this country. I don't believe that. How in the heck can you be oppressed when we have a large millionaire base?
And Rihanna is a billionaire.
That's what I'm saying. we got
I was like,
a
she's a black singer,
black
she's
president.
a billionaire.
We have a black vice president. How in the heck are we oppressed in this country? I don't understand it. You ever look at Congress? That's more black faces than there on the baseball team. You gonna tell me we oppressed in this country?
Right.
No, I don't see it. Just stop lying to me. That's what I'm saying. But you look at this, And the Bible tells us to treat others as we would have them treat us. So if I am a Christian and I say, you have been oppressing me, and that was wrong, it was wrong for you to do that, how then do I, in the name of Christ, turn around and do an evil to you and call it good?
Well, you can't.
See, the Bible says, woe unto you who call evil good and good evil.
Right.
And that's what we're finding ourselves in today. We've been sold the carrot of privilege. I'm going to get something. And there is nothing free in this world. There's nothing free in this world. You know, I you know this, and I'll say for part of the audience that doesn't know, I recently retired a few years ago anyway as a police officer, 31 years. And I spent about a third of that time solidly working as a sex crimes investigator. And most of that was crimes against children. And one of the things that I discovered as a pattern was people who preyed on children is they would find runaways. They find children in distress. And these kids were on the streets because mom and dad didn't understand them or life situation was bad. And they would pick these kids up and they would give them a dinner. I may even buy them a hotel room for the night. But see, nothing's free.
Right.
And so that once these kids got into their debt, in their mind anyway, then there was a payday. Well, I need you to do this for me. I need you to do this for me. And before long, these kids were either working or just have been targeted and set aside as victims with these sexual predators. And that's the way this game is being played. They have these power elites from their position of critical, using the vehicle of critical theory to get to their positions of power, telling you these lies. I'm going to give you all this power. I'm going to give you all these goods. But see, it's never free.
Right.
It's never free. It's going to cost you something. And Schumer says in his very fantastical way, we want everybody to move into the middle class, which means there's only going to be two classes, his class and our class. Because he didn't say anything about moving himself to the middle class.
No.
You see, he's going to move all the people on the bottom, quote unquote, up to the middle class. And then what that's going to do is put us right back in what's it called? Not theocratic. Aristocracy of England, where you had the royals.
Right.
And they had all these royals in all these different countries, but really just one family.
Or it's just like the idea of the ruling class.
That's what
I'm
saying.
And then the working everything
what's that?
else.
What's that movie with Mel Gibson? You can take away my...
Oh, Braveheart?
Braveheart, yeah. You know, it's the same thing. You got all these people in the ruling class, and they're one big family. This cousin married that cousin. They may be in Scotland, they may be in Italy, but they're all one family. And they rule the world. And that's what they want. They want to have the elites, whether you're the elite in America, the elite in Russia, the elite in China, the elite in Korea, you're all part of the elite class. So therefore, we will bind together to suppress everyone else so that we can live the way we want. And that's what this is all about.
You know, that's what's so interesting, too. I think people have to be just knowledgeable, right? I think I heard someone say, I forget who it was, but they said as Christians, we should be astute.
Yes.
In these things. Like, we don't have the luxury to be, just go along and see what happens. Like, no, we should know. And it's so interesting when you listen to world leaders. I heard so many, like, they're all spouting the same inclusive language.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, guys, wake up. Okay, this is all, they're using this, like, critical theory, intersectionality type thing, painting the haves, the haves not, this oppression.
And they say it over. It's like
until
a
you
mantra.
start to believe it.
You say it like a
and
mantra.
It's like,
and all of a sudden, everybody believes it because nobody's asking the question. What's the name of the show? Behind the Why.
Right.
Nobody's asking the question, why are they saying these things?
Right.
Why are these millionaires telling me they're going to go after millionaires? Why? I mean, you ask the question, why would Nancy Pelosi call the fence on the border immoral and then have a fence around her own house? And she hasn't said one word about the fence since the election.
Right.
Why? Nobody asked the question why.
Why is, okay, this is a little not related, but kind of. Why is it racist to have voter ID, but not
to get the star ID to fly?
The star card to fly.
Come on.
What else? Proof of vaccination in some places.
You gotta have proof of just to go to the supermarket in LA. You gotta have proof of ID.
So I'm like, but voter
that's
ID?
Not racist.
That's racist.
That's what people are not asking. Why? They're not asking the simple questions. Right. And because we're not asking the simple questions, I'm not going to call any names because one, I can't support the idea, so I don't want to call the name. But this is a lady that I I can call friend in the sense that we are acquaintances, even though we've never met in person.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked several times. I've been on her show. She's been on mine. And she had this statement on her podcast. And she said, what if? I'm just floating this out as an idea. That the whole problem with the Taliban in Afghanistan was done by President Trump. That he made a deal with them. That he would allow them to take Kabul. Did I say it right?
I think it's like Kabul.
Kabul. And that would cause President Biden to fail and then get kicked out of office, and he'll be able to get back into office, and then he will give them a favor. And I thought to myself, well, that's just foolish. That's just foolish.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm thinking, and the same person goes on to make another statement that says, don't be deceived. This is all done just to make Joe Biden look bad. Joe Biden makes himself look bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first point. Secondly, it's like, when are we going to wake up?
Right.
We're so ingrained, I'm talking about black people now, we're so ingrained in this ideology that we cannot, we've been taught and trained, it's going back to those buzzwords, right?
Right.
That we can't separate ourselves from this ideology without denying ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That if you say Democrat bad, ooh, I'm a racist.
Right.
If I say what the Democrats are doing is bad, I'm somehow a racist or anti-black.
Yeah, or you lose your
you know, and
your
this is what this critical theory does. It traps you into stupid thinking.
Mm-hmm.
All this political correctness. That's all part of critical thinking. You know, what's his name? Dr. Brain surgeon.
Ben Carson.
Ben Carson said, you know, political correctness makes fools of us all. We can't have an honest conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of that critical theory. Now you got going into he, she, it, they, was. No, it makes you stupid. I look at you, you are obviously a female.
Right.
Don't call me a female. What are you? I'm a them. Okay, Beelzebub and crew. You know, it makes us crazy.
It makes things way too complicated.
Because it's not based in reality.
Right.
It has no truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's not real.
Right.
I know people freak out when I say that, but it's not real.
You know what's crazy about it, though?
Ray's number one rule, it's not real.
What's crazy is because it has like roots in postmodern ideals, right, where there is no objective truth. Yet critical race theory, it really has become like a religion.
Wait,
it tells you.
Stop.
Huh?
Drop the word like.
Okay, it is.
It's a religion.
It is religion.
Because it's based on belief.
It is, and it's an ideology. It tells you how to live your life, your worldview, what's right, what's wrong, which means they believe there is objective truth. Because if I disagree with that, well, then I'm wrong. Okay, so that means there's
I'm
some
going to say
element of
something that
truth
people will get
that
mad at me
they
about.
have. What?
And I hope YouTube don't get too angry with me.
Oh. Ooh,
But
uh-oh.
looking at the ideological constructs of critical race theory,
Mm-hmm.
it's very much like the radical Islam. You know, I'm not trying to be a buzzword, but think about it.
Mm-hmm.
These people are going into Kabul this week. What are they telling people? Either you comply
Or die.
or you die. You comply or you become canceled.
Mm-hmm.
And they're taking it to the extreme because they are the ultimate rule. There's nobody
Right.
else above them.
Right.
Now, notice when they're not in control, they don't just kill people indiscriminately.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as they get absolute control, then they act absolutely evil because that's
Right.
what they really are at heart. And so we see this now, this critical theory. If you don't agree with them,
Mm-hmm.
you get canceled.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care who you are.
Right.
You see, it was funny back when like in Kevin Hart got canceled because you would think if anybody's going to be protected, he's a black comedian.
Right.
You
Yeah.
think, well, he's got an ace card. He's got an ace card. No.
He can play the black card. Nope.
Get canceled.
Mm-hmm.
Was the one gay guy who had all these followers on Twitter got canceled? Why? Because he supported President Trump.
Right.
So it wasn't the fact that they was protecting homosexuals.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the fact they were protecting black men. And Candace Owens has been tarred, feathered, strung up by the toes several times.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
And so
yeah.
they're not protecting black females.
No.
So-
Thomas Sowell. He's
Sowell,
been labeled as a.
and they totally
white
ignored him
supremacist.
again. And what's his name? In California, running for governor,
Oh, Larry Elder.
Larry Elder. You see, so it has nothing to do with being black or female or being gay. That's not protected.
Mm-hmm.
What's protected is being part of the ideology.
Right.
See, that's what's protected. And this is what people need to understand. They need to stop lining up behind this junk. and start asking the question, what are they really trying to achieve?
Right.
And if you want to see what they're trying to achieve, look at what they have achieved.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of people want to sit here and tell me, it wasn't just this woman on the podcast I looked at today, but a lot of people will sit here and say that this trouble we're experiencing in America today, Trump did it.
Right. It's because of what he did that we're here.
And you're going, this is so different than the world that Trump created.
Right.
I mean, from economics to schools.
Oh
Trump
my
had
gosh.
actually put a motion in place to stop critical race theory in all public
Yes.
education.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing Biden did was come out and pull it out.
Right. I saw a tweet that Trump had put out back in 2018, and I believe it was to the Iranian president. And it was, I'm like, oh, Trump, it's so great. It was a threat. He basically said, I'm like totally summarizing right now, but he basically just said, the evil you're doing, you better stop, or you will experience
The wrath of
like
the
the
red.
wrath.
The wrath of the red man.
The wrath of the orange man. Orange man.
Orange man. Wrath of the orange man.
But it was so funny, and I'm like, look at that. I was like, but that was on Twitter.
Uh-huh.
But and then after like I think it was after he had they had killed Soleimani.
Mm-hmm.
He just tweets an American flag. President Trump did. There was this like America is strong, and I think what's so interesting. I was thinking about this that now that this critical race theory has been so embraced, and this oh my gosh, what it's projecting is just weakness. You know,
I can't take credit for it, but somebody said online one day, he said critical theory just had a butt handed to it by toxic masculinity in Afghanistan.
Oh, I saw that.
Critical theory in itself promotes weakness.
It really is.
And nobody's intimidated by weakness.
No.
I'm telling you right now.
It's weakness. And then, I mean, I was just looking, and so in June, in Kabul, the U.S. Embassy was flying the Pride flag, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, there's just the Taliban flag. But I was like, okay, America, in all these other countries, like, we're just projecting weakness. And, in the name of empathy. And, it's like, what?
What was the one we watched this? I forget who actually did the promotion. I forget who it was.
Mm-hmm.
I can't give you credit because I don't remember who you were. But it was this promotion they did on the Russian army. And they showed these guys hardcore training and drilling.
Oh, yeah.
And then the Chinese army, hand-to-hand combat, Russian training, drilling, military, bomb weapons. Then they showed the advertisement from the American military. And it's about this gay girl who grows up to be a strong female. And she can pull her own because she's a strong... I was like, what's it got to do with anything?
I feel like, what are you trying to communicate to the world?
It's like American military is made up of lesbians. I mean, what are you trying to say? What was the message of that? It's like when you're going out there fighting, and I tell you, I in 31 years as a police officer, I fought a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I fought some women. And the women who go to hand-to-hand and go to fight, they weren't using powder puffs, okay?
Right.
When they come down to war, and I had some women beside me in uniform who could throw down. Mm-hmm. And those are the ones you want.
Right.
And so you don't want to promote, the fact that you're a lesbian. That has anything to do? Can you fight?
Yeah, that has nothing to do with.
Can you shoot?
It has nothing to do with your intelligence.
Nothing.
Or anything. So like,
it's like back when when this whole push for the acceptance and the adoption of homosexuality was really running rapid, coming out of the 70s, going to the 80s. The big cry from the homosexual community was, "Stay out of my bedroom." Mm-hmm. But the thing that always bumped me said, they were the ones that always brought it up. Mm-hmm. I'd meet people and they'd be all up in my face that they're gay. I'm like, I don't care.
Right. I don't care. Can you do the job? That's all.
I don't care if you're gay. I really don't.
Right.
I think homosexuality is a sin, but that's between you and God.
Right.
No, if I get a chance to be your friend, I'm gonna love you and I'll tell you what the Bible says. But I'm not gonna let you being gay stop me from being your friend.
Right.
And so, but I'm like, I don't care. But when we put that out as the main thing, and see, and the reason, and I say all this is because this all has its roots in this critical theory. Mm-hmm. That's what I want everybody to understand. It's not just that they're destroying the classroom. I can't remember, was it Chairman Mao that said that if you give me a child for the first 8 years of his life, I'll have him for the rest of his life.
Right.
That's straight out of communist philosophy. And what are they trying to do now? They're trying to own our children by indoctrinating them in their earliest formative years.
It's just crazy that this is happening.
It's confusing a child that telling them they're a guy and then when they're a girl, and a girl that they're a guy, and they can be a it and a they, and all this other stupid stuff that has nothing to do with A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Right.
So your kids can come out there and paint the colors of the rainbow, but they can't tie their shoe or write their name. Mm-hmm. And this is
just... even in Oregon, wasn't it the Oregon, I'm not sure if it was like the mayor or somebody, I just remember seeing the headline, that they basically said that students don't have to have proof of being able to read or do math to
Oh,
graduate. Did you see that?
Yeah, I remember reading. Somebody told me about it. I'm not sure if it was you. I didn't check it up myself.
Yeah,
so
I forget.
I can't swear to, but I remember hearing about it.
I'm not sure if it was just in one, like, yeah, anyways. But things
But
like that, I was like, there's
So what they're doing,
theory
what they're
for
doing
you.
now is they're doing on the wide scale what they've been doing in the inner city forever.
Right.
Social promotion.
Lowering standards.
Yeah, it's when I first moved here to Idaho back in '97. There was a public service commercial that used to come on, and I thought it was so good, and it's since been lost. You can't find it anywhere. But it was this kid on a track, and they were talking about educating, preparing the kids, running in slow motion, and they're talking about preparing your kids for life. And they got these hurdles out in front, but the hurdles are like 2 inches off the ground. So the kid's jumping over the hurdle. He's doing back spins over the hurdle, and he's running. And then he says, "Don't go through the trouble of making life so easy for your child that when they confront it in real life, they don't have the skills to succeed." And he runs to the regular size hurdle, and he stops because it's hitting him in his chest. He's like, he's not equipped.
Right.
All those little hurdles didn't help him, and that's what we're doing. We're creating a lower class society, and and it's being done to us. You want to talk about systematic racism? Forget about that.
Right.
That's an illusion. Systematic oppression is real.
It is very real.
And you look at the people who are doing it, and it's not the black white people. It's not the black people. It is the elites.
I mean, honestly, you can just look at these mandates when it comes to the COVID stuff. The amount of issues with mental health that we've seen skyrocket over the past year is insane.
Yes.
I'm like, in this case,
it makes no sense.
In this case, what do they say? Like their solution is worse than the problem. It's like,
Right.
oh my goodness,
nothing they're doing with COVID makes sense.
No.
I mean, you think about in this country, you have schools being shut down. You have hospitals being threatened to be shut down. You have all these things. You get millions of dollars being pumped into COVID advertising. What would happen if you took that same amount of money and took care of your veterans who came home with mental health issues because of the war they went to fight for this country?
Or kids who are dealing with things because they were quarantined for so long.
Just dealing with real medical situations. I mean, real medical. And I'm not saying COVID is not real. I'm talking about the politics around
but things that are around,
COVID.
like you're saying, like diabetes, which is a huge issue.
If you want to give somebody free shots, give them shots for diabetes. Give them medication for psychiatric disease. Give them medication for heart disease. I mean, there's things you can do to make a difference in this country, and yet they spend. And you know what? Asking why? Why we just accept the fact that, well, this makes sense, or they wouldn't be doing it. No, that's slave thinking.
Right.
The muscle did it. The muscle must be right. No, that's slave thinking.
Right.
Ask, like free people. Ask the question why.
Right.
You know, someone told me we did a last show, and a guy was getting all over me about this is not possible. The government would never do anything. I said, did you ever read or check up on the Tuskegee, the Alabama syphilis program?
Right.
I mean, this is recent history. This is not 100 years ago. This is in my lifetime. I mean, this is what the U.S. government did. We're not talking about
experimenting on people.
They did that, and when people, I remember one cast, can't remember the brother's name, actually left Alabama trying to go up north to his sister's house to get treatment. The government officials tracked him down, got him out of the medical facility, and brought him back to watch him die. Yes, the U.S. government did that. That's a matter of history. We're not talking about could be, possibly, should be. This is what happened. So when you tell me that these things don't happen or can't happen, I say shame on you.
Right.
Shame on you. Ask this one brother,
like
a brother I really respect and love, and I asked him the question. I said, with everything you see going on, do you not see shades of Nazi Germany here, this at all, and pre-Hitler, etc.? He goes, I don't see any relationship at all. And I said, and this is before Kabul, and I said to him, you're the type of person that gives truth to the lie to the truth. Is that those who refuse to learn the lessons of history are doomed to repeat it. And then we had Kabul happen. We see the same thing going on now. We see the same lie, the same thing that happened in Vietnam happening in Kabul. I'm thinking, here it is again. History repeating itself because we're repeating the same lies. And I heard that one guy, and I don't even know his name, I don't even want to justify him by giving his name. He's one of Biden's people. Stand up on the east lawn or the south lawn of the White House. He's standing all dignified, and he says, well, we decided, the Biden administration decided to no longer expend American lives and American tax dollars in Afghanistan when the Afghanistan army refused to fight for itself. I'm like, you just told a bold-faced lie, looking right into the camera. You just sold out your allies in front of the whole world. You're going to save taxpayers' dollars? How much American machinery did you leave there?
Right.
You're going to save taxpayers' dollars? How many American guns did you leave there?
And
How much
trucks.
ammunition did you leave there? How many drones did you leave there? And it's like, but nobody's asking the question why.
Right.
He makes this statement and everybody goes, amen, yes, yeah. And it's like, no, somebody's got to ask the question. Well, why are you lying to me? Now, we've used this example before. When I was doing investigations, one of the first lessons I learned in doing an interview and interrogation, when someone lies, let them lie.
Right.
But then ask yourself the question.
Why are you telling this lie?
Why are they lying?
Right.
And then why are they telling that particular lie? So first, you're going to ask, why are you lying? So why is this guy on the White House lawn lying? Because he knows what he did. They messed up. And why is he telling this particular lie? So now that's another question.
Right.
Why? Now you're trying to win the sympathies of all these American families who's lost loved ones, whose sons and daughters died in Afghanistan, who died in Iran and Iraq. You're trying to win their sympathies back by saying, I'm doing this to respect the American people. You're just going to play on the sympathies of the lives that you caused. Even George Bush came out of the hole the other day, and I was so disappointed in him. He's coming in the same old tired story. And like, where have you been?
Right.
Where have you been? You were an ex-president of the United States. You could have had some say in this, but no. Now you come out trying to, and it's just the same old tired lie. It's like, I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of it. And sooner or later, we the people have got to rise up and call a spade a spade.
Right.
And
open our eyes.
And this critical theory is just the beginning of it. And we haven't even gotten to a tenth of this information, and we've already been talking almost an hour here already. So, but it is just. There's so much going on.
Not an hour.
There's so much going on.
I don't think so, at least.
There's so much going on in this country. Well,
I think. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm gonna cut you off.
No, please. I've been talking too much.
Because it's true. There's a lot going on. I think there's a lot that could discourage people. There's a lot that is causing fear in people's hearts. So I think it's so important as believers.
Okay, let's turn that corner.
Who have a hope.
Let's turn
right?
that corner. Go ahead.
What are we to do? Because we should not live in fear.
No. God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of love, peace, and soundness of mind.
Exactly.
Right?
And even in spite of things being, pushed around, different ideas that are popular, we are still to stand on the truth, right? And so as believers, I think we should talk about that a little bit before we go. It's what are we to do in the midst of all this craziness?
Because here's the thing. This is what gives us hope. We have the structure that God gave us in Matthew 24, and it's very clear. It just follows the outline of a woman who's pregnant. And we talked about this before. When a woman first gets pregnant, she doesn't even know it.
Right.
It's she might, people have said, ooh, I think I just got pregnant, but they don't know. It's just good sex, I don't know, but they just thought they got pregnant. I don't know. But anyway, they don't even know they're pregnant. Okay, and then slowly but surely, her body begins to give her signs. Okay, she starts missing a cycle. Things start to happen. Then there's sign. Oh, there's something different going on here. Something has changed. And that's what Jesus said it would be like in the last days. So as you begin to look around, all of a sudden we begin to realize something's changed.
Yeah, there's something different.
Something's changed.
Right.
I can't just go out and go to the store like I used to. And it's not just in my little town. It's all over the place. And that's what makes this so unique. It's all over the place. And all of a sudden, we're starting to see growth. We see this thing. It's like, whoa, that's getting big.
I think what we're seeing is, like we started the episode with, we're starting to see the plants grow. The seeds have been sown a long time ago. Yes. Because critical theory is nothing new.
No.
So it's like we're starting to see those things grow.
It's roots in Marxism, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's not new. And the thing, and this is a sad part of the lie, is that somehow this group of elitists have convinced themselves that it will work this time.
Right.
See, that's what they've done. They did the same thing that the last group of elitists did. They said, they weren't as smart as we are. So we're going to use the same tools they use. We're going to polish them up and use electronics now since we have them. But it's going to fail because it can't help but fail.
Right.
It cannot succeed. For one reason is because there's no such thing as a truly benevolent person. Okay, the only benevolent person got crucified.
Right.
Okay, but he allowed that. It wasn't a trap. So even if they were to institute their form of socialist or communist government, it would fail because they're greedy, and they're going to keep on. It just people they can't do it because they have to. Eventually, somebody said, eventually you're gonna run out the other man's money.
Exactly.
And so that becomes a time. You think about this in all these countries. People who they surrender their powers. What happens? Whether you're talking to a street gang whether you're talking about a military or government, you have a group of people who surrender their power to a smaller group of people. Mm-hmm. Like we used the example before, a lot of the people who fought for Germany in World War II were not Nazis. They didn't even agree with the socialist regime, but they were part of the German country, so they went to fight Germans' wars. And eventually, the people will stop fighting for the despot. Mm-hmm. And what I'm trying to say is we need to stop sooner rather than later.
Right.
Because we still have a representative form of government in this country. We can still legally change our leaders.
Right.
We need to do that
while we have the time.
Before they take the power from us. Because the elite is not happy with you having power.
Right.
They're not happy with you having power.
So, for the Christian, wake up while we have time.
Let's go back.
I think, like, I was reading, I wrote it down here, 1 Thessalonians 5:14. It says, "We urge you, brethren, admonish the unruly, encourage the faint-hearted, help the weak, be patient with everyone."
And why can't we do that? Because of Jesus.
Exactly. And I'm just thinking, so in the time that we have, as we come in contact with other believers who are confused, not sure what to believe, man, let's admonish one another, encourage one another, call out things for what they are. If something's a stupid way of thinking, it's critical theory, tell them that's stupid. Don't be thinking that,
As
right?
the great philosopher said, stupid is as stupid does, right?
Because we still have, like you're saying, time to fight.
Time today. We're still in the gestation period.
While it's today.
We're still in gestation period.
Yeah.
It hasn't been brought forth yet.
Yeah.
We still got time. Mm-hmm. So we need to rise up as children of God and be children of God first. Mm-hmm. I know that sounds insulting to some people because I've talked to people. You have to be a child of God first before you're male, before you're female, before you're black, you're white, you're green, you're orange, before you're an American. Be a Christian first. And if you do that, then you're going to have the pleasure of God. And you'll hit the most success. And I know, because I read the Bible, that eventually the way this world is going is the way this world is going to go. Mm-hmm. We know that. And I typically do not see America on the national scene as I read apocalyptic prophecy. Some people disagree with me. I'm okay with that. I don't worry about it. But we're going to go through this time of change and degradation. The apocalyptic world we see in movies is going to become the reality of this world. That's biblical fact. So until that time, while it is yet today, let us work while it's still called today. Mm-hmm. We have to share this gospel message. I love the word you said. Let us admonish one another. Mm-hmm. Let us call me out. Let's admonish one another unto righteousness. Right. Because if we don't, we know where this is going. And it'll go sooner rather than later if we don't step up and stand out. Let's do that. Let's be lights for Jesus.
Turn on the light.
Click it.
Yeah.
All right. We better get out of this thing. So until next time, guys, I want to thank you for joining us, you and me, join us here behind the why. Mm-hmm. And I want to admonish you guys. I'm admonishing you right here, and especially those who are called Christians. When you see this stuff on the news, get behind the why. I keep looking at the light instead of the camera.
Get behind the why.
Get behind the why.
Pray.
That's it. Until next time.
Peace.